All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0, everybody knows, are brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. You can pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba at your local Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie. If you don't know where you can pick up Johnny Cuba in your neighborhood, you send me a message, my man Juan. He'll tell me exactly where to tell you to go pick up a Johnny Cuba. Take it from me. You guys, you'll try Johnny Cuba for the very first time. You're like, ZASLOW, I didn't know it was so delicious. And I'm going to tell you, of course it's so delicious. What do you think I've been telling you about it for? Remember, always drink responsibly. And, of course, Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here is our pal, Israel Gutierrez. Hello, Israel. Thanks a lot for joining us here. I'll talk, obviously, with you about Damian Lillard. That's the big story, all right? But I do want to start by asking you, you used to be like a legit, reporter. And what I mean by that is, you used to break stories like trades, free agencies. You were on the Miami Heat beat for a long time here, the Miami Herald. So you understand the way this game is played. And I wonder, what are your thoughts? And social media obviously has changed the game a lot over the last, dozen or so years. I wonder what you think of the way this works over the last, week since free agency began, because I feel like there are dudes out there, man, who just make stuff up. Like, am I wrong about saying that? Like, I feel like some of the reporters, they have to show their bosses, hey, I'm in the game, I got info. I feel like there are some guys who make stuff up, man. Am I wrong?
I hope so. I hope you're wrong. Where I think guys maybe fall short or just go with something that may not be true, I don't think it's made up. I think they just don't, they overvalue the quality of their source. Their source could be, hearing it third hand, but maybe because, that person's in an important position somewhere else, or has been right in the past. Maybe, they think, oh, this is definitely right, I'm going to go with this. And I think what's happening with sort of all these stories and all this type of reporting is it's just like, it's all just so out in the open, and it's all so obvious what everybody's doing. And so, whatever you want to say, it's clear Damian Lillard has reporters, Damian Lillard's camp, his agent, whatever you want to call it, has reporters that he'll or they'll lean on. And, obviously their message is clear. They want to go to Miami. Portland doesn't want that to be a lack of leverage case. And so they've been playing all the other cards, which are, hey, we're going to take the right deal, the best deal for us, when really all that's doing is just kind of stalling to see if they can find a spot, perhaps for Tyler Hero, and, seeing if Miami can take Nurkic as well as part of the deal, etc. And the thing that makes me laugh is like, all right, we've seen this so many times. We know exactly how it plays out. We know exactly who's asking for what and what's being done. It's no secret that, maybe Adrian Wojnarowski has some pretty good sources in Portland, and, maybe protecting sources. I don't know how that stuff works necessarily at his level, but it's so clear what's happened. After Damian Lillard has been this perfectly loyal person for 10, 11 seasons, right? Has had the opportunity, for 4 years, basically, to ask out if he wanted to reasonably, like everybody else does after 7 years, and hasn't, and has given him every opportunity to build a winner around him. Now, this is the guy. This is who they're going to say, no, you're going to do whatever the heck we want to do. We're the team that has power, not the play. No, this is clearly, especially because it's Portland, like one of, if not the smallest market in the league. If you do that to the superstar that has been ridiculously loyal to you over the last handful of seasons, and you have failed him in building around him, you're like, you can never expect your star rookie to ever re-sign with you. You can never expect to build around a super duper star, because look what happened. You had a decade with one, and then you kicked him to the curb and didn't even give him what he wanted on the way out. Like, that's not the reputation they want. And so this, to me, is a pretty simple transaction. It's the benefit of the LeBrons and all of everybody. I mean, LeBron didn't ask for a trade, but the benefit of flexing your muscle, if you will. And he's doing it. And he's played along the entire time, ZASLOW. The agent apology for the IG Live Miami music, what the hell is that?
That's weird.
You don't need an apology for that. It's obvious they've been playing along every step of the way, trying to do whatever they can for Portland to get as much out of Miami. And And the other thing that bugs me about this, and you haven't asked me this yet, but the other thing that me about this is this idea that Tyler Hero is something of
I'm
an
so glad you're
like
bringing this up. But keep going. I'm so glad you mentioned this. Go ahead.
I read somebody, I think it works for us. I think this is who I read, said Philadelphia should be the leader, or is probably going to, because they have the most attractive package around rising star Tyrese Maxey. Explain that one to me.
Maxey's resume is chump change compared to Tyler Hero.
And Tyler Hero's not. Exactly. I mean, they even went to the same school, for crying out loud. So just look at the actual numbers and look at the production and look at, what their roles are in their respective teams and what they've had to do. Like Tyrese Maxey had an easier, just fill in the gaps wherever the heck Harden and Embiid, leave them. And with Tyler, it's a totally different story. Tyler came in as a scorer, was transitioned into sort of a combo guard, and did all that. He did a lot of work on himself, and is a very good player, fringe all-star, if not going to be an all-star 1 or 2 times in the league. Like the idea that just because he doesn't fit in what you think you're building in Portland, which what the hell are you building in Portland? You just signed Jeremy Grant to an over-the-top contract, which felt like one of those contracts that you just signed to make sure that you don't look terrible after Damian Lillard leaves. Why him? He's not Chris Bosh. He's not even that level of player. So if you don't want Tyler Hero back in that trade, maybe you should take back Tyler Hero in that trade, because you don't know what you're doing over there in Portland. You don't know what you're doing, and he might be better than what you think he is.
I'm so glad you brought up the Tyler Hero. How many rookies score 37 points in an NBA Finals game? Where's that list? Show me the list, because it's kind of small. He's a 6th man of the year. He's through 4 years. He's played 100 big games at the NBA level at this point. He's fearless. He gets better every single year. I'm so glad you brought it up with Tyler Hero. There seems to be this agenda out there where Tyler Hero is some type of locker room killer. You don't want this guy on your team. And you mentioned Tyrese Maxey. I got news for you. When Maxey, and I like Maxey. I don't want to make this about Tyrese Maxey not being a good player. I think he's great. But when Tyrese Maxey signs his extension eventually, I guess in a year from now, it's going to be a lot more than the $27 million a year that Tyler Hero makes. I got news for you.
Yeah. And you mentioned locker room cancer or whatever he might be about. You know how many opportunities Tyler had to just be a jerk? To just speak up and be like, what are you guys doing? Last year in the playoffs, it felt early on like he was getting frozen out a little bit, and he wasn't nearly as much, say what you will, but, maybe the offense was more focused and he didn't, wasn't as important as a scorer at the point, but he could have gone off then. He could have gone off a couple of times, and he didn't. He could have gone off when they asked him to be the 6th man, and he won 6th man of the year. He just said, no, I'm a starter. And he didn't do that. And so, he has been a quality locker room person, a quality player, and go ahead and try to convince some other team to give you some other player. Okay, Mikal Bridges, let's just say hypothetically you can get Mikal Bridges, which you can't. You building a team around Mikal Bridges the way you do around Damian Lillard? No. So why are you even bothering with that level of nitpicking? Go get your draft picks, get your young players like a Tyler Hero, who can run a combo like a point guard for you situation. If you want to run him and Simons together as combo guards, they probably can. Neither of them are going to be great defenders, but they can probably make teams make it a nightmare for teams on the other end. So yeah, I just think they're doing this wrong. They did everything right so far in terms of making sure that Damian plays along and everybody's saying the right things, but to immediately devalue Tyler Hero, which is was this close to making an all-star team a couple of years ago and is, really good, a starter, 20 points a game on a team that made it to the finals, even though he wasn't there because of injury. It's ridiculous, how they devalue him.
And I understand Tyler being upset right now. He's taken the Miami Heat out of his social media bios. And I get it from his perspective, where he feels like he's going to be traded, so he could be upset with the Heat about that part of it. And then there's all of this we're talking about, where everyone out there on social media is trying to tell anyone who's within earshot of how they don't want Tyler Hero on their team. And that's bullshit. I totally get Tyler being upset about it. It sucks.
And I do. And it sucks too, because obviously Pat Riley said what he said about Tyler being, a cornerstone for the franchise.
Well, we know what that is.
Right. It's building him up. It's leverage and all that stuff. But one of the things that I loved about Tyler when talking to him at length a couple of years ago was he really likes and values the idea and doesn't take for granted the idea that he's on a winning team. Like, that's why he made all those sacrifices. That's why he didn't bitch and complain, is because his dream has always been to be on a relevant team and contribute to that team. And he had been doing that for whatever it is, 4 seasons. And so it would suck for him to go to some team like Portland that's on a rebuild that theoretically doesn't want him, or even to Brooklyn, that team that just is the spare parts of the wreck of, Durant, Harden, and Kyrie Irving. So I get that. And for me personally, like, I think if he goes out to the Western Conference, he's going to do himself a favor. He's going to do his game a favor, and he's probably going to flourish even more out there without, Jimmy and Bam and the sort of structure of the Eastern Conference. And so I feel bad for him because he is, like we're talking about, nationally being looked at as a completely different player than we were celebrating just a year plus ago. And so, and to him, it's the Heat's fault because they could just build around him and say, forget that guy. But no, I get it too. But I don't think it would be the worst thing for his career if he goes and gets the reins on a team for a little bit and shows off what he can do.
Back to the journalism / reporting part of everything we're hearing right now. I feel like a lot of these reporters are obviously holding water for general managers and trying to get their, position out, trying to get their angle out. Like, when a general manager tells you something, he's your source. Mm-hmm. You have to know what's happening there, but do you just put it out anyway? Because it's like, all right, this is the game. Like, this is probably not true, and it's posturing, and you're being used to essentially promote a certain angle, but it's coming right from the horse's mouth. So what do you do in that spot?
Well, mostly what happens there is the GM will say, well, here's what I can tell you. And then you've got to, if there are any gaps to be filled, you've got to fill them yourself. GMs aren't going to lie to you, frankly. They're just going to try to give you information that gives their best, puts them in the best position. And so as a reporter, if you are being led one way and you just go hook, line, and sinker without backing it up or without getting some other sources to confirm it, then you're probably playing yourself because, like you said, everybody knows what the game is. And so it's just a matter of who's good and who's not. And again, I don't really know how it works directly in the Woj circles or in the Adam Schefter circles. Like, I've never been that level of reporter. In fact, we talk about it all the time, that one summer where the Heat made all those trades, and that story for the Herald. 2005.
Like, I was the first person that you told.
Let me just say, thank goodness for Jason Williams' agent, who his name escapes me at the moment, but he's the one who started the dominoes for me. And so then I could confirm everything else from there. And so he's I don't think he's in the business anymore. So I think it's okay for me to say, but he kind of also told me, like, just because I schmoozed it out of him. So it wasn't like he actually even felt like he was giving me stuff. But anyway,
for people who don't know the story, the Heat made the huge trade after losing in Game 7 in 2005, and they traded away Eddie Jones and whoever else, and they got Jason Williams, James Posey, and Antoine Walker. And at the time, what was like the biggest trade in the history of the league, the most teams, the most players involved.
Right.
It was a lot of pieces. And Israel is the one who broke the story. And the way that he broke the story, he called me in the studio at $7.90 the ticket and said, hey, this just happened. Can you put me on air? I think it was Stu Gatz, maybe, who was on the air in the afternoon filling in for Le Batard. And you said, you want to put me on air with, whoever you got there, and I can go ahead and break this, for everyone. So I was the first person that you told, and then you went on the air and you actually broke the story. How about that?
What's funny is I don't even remember that part. I only remember what my job was to get it in the paper. And that part I remembered, but all the other stuff around it, don't even remember very much. But yeah, that was a fun time. I couldn't do that every year.
Yeah, that's the way it went down. That was fun. All right. So just so much of the reporting is, I don't know, like when you get the report a few days ago that Kyrie Irving has all of these meetings lined up and one of the teams is the Heat. It's like, yeah, that's definitely not true. It's definitely not true, Israel. That stuff makes me nuts,
Yeah. And so I don't know, like situations like Kyrie, I just find completely unique because, again, it's immediately transparent. Like everybody knows what his situations are, but it just seems like he's above that, or his folks are above that. And so maybe, like you have, they've convinced themselves that, yeah, people do this all the time. They lie, they put stuff out there. Let's just put this out there.
Right.
Maybe. But I wouldn't say that that is normal. I wouldn't say that that's regular practice. I would say that that's probably something that, if it did happen in this Kyrie situation, then that's very unique to him and his camps. So that one it was just so crazy to me. It's like, even Dallas, they don't need any leverage because they already know, they already gave up the picks and the players to get to Kyrie. They already know they're stuck paying him. And so
Bill Simmons had the funny tweet. You saw Bill Simmons's tweet. The Mavericks had to go 3 for 126 because there were a couple of other teams ready to offer 3 for 25. That's a funny tweet, man.
I thought the funniest tweet was when Kyrie was talking about going to Phoenix and said, "Oh, now he believes in the Suns' rotation."
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Israel, I think that Josh Richardson is better than Gabe Vincent. What do you make of that?
I don't. I think Gabe Vincent is better for his shot making. I think he is enough of a pest defensively. I think he gets there and he gets to the spot better and makes it way more difficult for an official to make a call. In fact, got some wrong calls against him in the playoffs because he just gets to the spot so well. I think Josh is a different type of defender. He'll try to deflect. He'll try to, he'll definitely stay in front, but he won't necessarily take the charge. He'll try to, take the ball. And so I think offensively, when you're creating in the pick and roll, if your options are, hey, Gabe, if he wants against drop coverage, is always going to have like a pull-up 17, 18-footer, it's all right, but it's not the best shot in the NBA. Whereas Josh is probably going to keep driving that and maybe try to draw a foul, maybe finish over somebody. I think that is probably better for playoff type of performances when you're talking about a guy that you're not expecting as much from. Because I don't think Josh Richardson, for example, if he were to start for the Miami Heat in the playoffs last year, I don't think he's better than Gabe Vincent. I don't. Not for that team. So this team, presumably as a backup sort of combo who can defend both spots, I think that's a good fit.
How long do you think this Lillard thing is going to drag out?
It really just kind of depends on whether the Heat are going to do their part to make the PR hit a little easier on Portland. Well,
what does that mean? What do they got to do? What does that mean?
I don't know exactly because I'm not in there, and Miami Heat doesn't leak very much. But
you're right. Like what you're saying, I can envision them saying, "Hey, what can we do to make you look good?"
Well, they have to do the work anyway because Portland's just sitting there. Their players, the one asking for the trade, so other people are giving offers, and so they could either find another team that wants Tyler or somebody else even more. But then, again, those other teams are very clear as to what's happening. You're trying to do Portland a favor. You're trying to do Miami a favor. And if you're asking me to get rid of a player that is even similar to Tyler Hero, to take back Tyler Hero just to get you to be the best team in the Eastern Conference, probably not going to do that. And so, they're doing their due diligence and trying to make sure that, there isn't another team out there that can get Portland to say yes faster or yes with less, stipulations. And then, if that doesn't work, then it's all right. Here is the salary that we want you to take. You got to take it. And so the thing that I am a little bit confused by is the Yusuf Nurkic thing. Like, people are saying, oh, you're going to have to take that contract. If I'm Miami, I know they just signed Thomas Bryant, but I'm good with that. Like, give me some depth of bigs because it's the thing we were lacking so terribly last year. And, if that means maybe as a, you're welcome, they take back Kyle Lowry because it's an expiring and they go full rebuild. Then they can sort of work out the details there. So I think that's where they are in this stage, is just Portland holding out to make sure that Miami does everything possible to try to get them back the best deal, because this just doesn't feel like this scenario where it's going to be, here's the curveball, dun, dun, dun. Portland's not going to give Damian Lillard what he wants after he was so good to them, for a few years. I will say this much. Mm-hmm. It is different than the CJ McCollum situation, because with CJ McCollum, Like, he knew for a while he was going to get traded. They just kind of worked around and said, hey, is this team cool? All right, we'll work a deal with this team. And then they did it, but it wasn't public. It wasn't CJ demanding a trade, and he didn't say, I only want to go there. So it gave Portland more options. That's why they were so great with him when it comes. So with Damian, it becomes a little different because he's asking for the trade. But again, he could have done it 3 years ago, could have done it 2 years ago. He could have asked for a trade and been this menace and been this annoying person a long time ago, and he didn't. So now it's your turn to return the favor.
Let's have some fun on the way out here, Israel. Earlier on the show today, because you have this new rule that the NBA is going to try in order to get rid of flopping. A rule, by the way, I have been saying for years, this is how you get rid of flopping. Technical fouls. This is it.
Penalty. Yeah.
This is it. They're going to get rid of it. All right. And yes, it's a judgment call. Every foul in official calls, guess what? Is a judgment call. Don't flop. Don't even make it look like a flop. It's going to work. So as a result, I gave my top 5 floppers. All right. Top 5. I counted them down from 5 to 1. It was so dramatic. Who are your top 5 floppers? Your guys who are going to be affected potentially the most by this new rule?
Well, I got an outside looking in, and this is more just because of the way he responds to calls, not so much about flopping, but he does flop a little bit. Jason Tatum drives me nuts. His relationship with the officials drives me absolutely insane. He complains about the tiniest of things, and then every time
down the floor, if he does not make a shot, he complains every time.
For sure.
Every time.
Number 5, Kyle Lowry.
Was Tatum not number 5?
No, he was outside looking in.
Oh, he's outside looking. Sorry. Number 5, Lowry. Go ahead. Okay.
Number 5 is Kyle Lowry. It's very much like reputation driven because he does get in there a lot. Like he's not a flopper the way my number 1 guy is a flopper. Because I think Kyle legitimately thinks he gets in there every time and then just, falls because you have to. I mean, a lot of people think like you don't have to fall. Falling is a flop. Like, you got to fall to get their attention, because otherwise, if they just hit you, it's the same thing with like LeBron and Shaq. If they just hit you and you just lay it up anyway and you don't feel like you were affected, you're probably not. You have to fall. And also, it's safer to fall. It's safer to just sort of like back, and absorb the hit anyway. But Kyle Lowry's number 5. I've got Chris Paul in there. Chris Paul is just really good. I mean, he does it all. Like, he's
got all the dirty veteran point guard tricks.
Highest IQ in the league in terms of tricks. Highest IQ in the league. Number 3, LeBron. LeBron is like, it's not even in a game where you say, okay, watch, he's going to flop a couple times. You just got to look through his resume. And I know he's got the longest resume of anybody in the sport, but good God, he's got some ridiculous flops, ridiculous flops. And he goes over the top with the grabbing and the face and all that stuff. So I got to go LeBron. Number 3, number 2, Trae Young.
Okay.
Trae Young is he's mini Paul Pierce. It's every time he dribbles the ball and And
you
so
it's to the point where kicking back.
A guy's a flopper when he gets called out for being a flopper, and he's just like, I'll do it less, whatever. Like he didn't even he just stopped doing it as much, but he's still a big time flopper.
Number 1, I'm very excited here. Who is it?
It's Marcus Smart. Number 1 is Marcus Smart. They're flying all over the place, like to the point where he can get people hurt. He's flying all over the place, and it's just his game plan. It's just part of his strategy. He's just been that guy his entire career. It's they're not going to call every foul. They're going to think a lot of the flops are real. And just, that's my game. And he is an irritant.
That's a good list. That's a good list. A couple of hours were different. I had number 5, Kyle Lowry.
Okay.
Number 4, LeBron James. Number 3, James Harden.
Okay.
Number 2, Marcus Smart. Number 1, Joel Embiid.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Embiid, the flopper?
You can't be his size and get knocked down as much as he gets knocked down. It's not possible.
I mean, Jokic gets knocked down a lot at that size.
I don't find Jokic to be a flopper at all, to be honest.
Right. So, I don't know. Embiid's a good one, though. Like,
I do know.
Okay. Sorry. Conversation over.
Number 1, the biggest flopper. You like this rule, though. I think it's going to work.
I do. I think, I think it's most certainly going to work, especially if...
I think it's going to be... I think there's one thing to get fined the next day, as opposed to another thing where you're in an arena of 20,000 people and they're all pointing at you that you're a flopper.
Yeah, and
different.
If you get away with one, if anybody gets away with one in a game and doesn't get that technical foul, like eyes are going to be even sharpened. Like it's going to be even and players are probably not going to do it. So I think there is a lot of muscle memory in that. Like every time I get touched, I'm supposed to do that. But I don't know if those aren't the flops that are going to be called. Like if somebody gets bumped and you just like fall back and it's not even close, like that is going to be stop the game. That's a technical.
Well, no, they're not stopping the game.
Right. Sorry. If the game is stopped in that scenario, whatever. Yeah, that should be a technical, or even if it's a bucket and then it should be an ant, right? Because it's a turnover because you try to. I think those are different than, in the middle of the plays while things are happening. Like if you're getting hit and you just kind of throw your head back, like I don't think those are going to be the ones that are going to get called. I think those, when you sort of embellish what you or just what you think is an actual call, like just to show them where you actually got fouled, I don't know if that's necessarily
that's going to be interesting.
Flop. I think the ones where you're creating something out of nothing, that's the ones where you're going to get the technical foul.
Good job, Israel. Is there anything we could promote for you here? What do you got going on?
It's July, man. No, I'm going to Summer League. I'm going to Vegas this weekend. So,
everyone's going to be talking, man. We get so much information and misinformation. Summer League, right? Yeah. Remember last year? Oh, man, Andy Osberg and Sean Marks, they're having lunch together in the food court.
The Shaq trade happened in Summer League in Orlando.
Is that right?
Yeah.
04. Yeah. Wow.
04,
how about that?
I remember Stan's giddy face the entire time we were talking about it.
Is that right?
It's one of those where you go from like, wow, I'm a head coach in the league, and it's just like, oh crap, I'm about to start coaching that guy.
Yeah. Good job, Israel. Thank you, pal.
All right, Zez.